Ambassador Trigunayat, when we talk about the voice of the global south, India has been reiterating and constantly pitching itself as the voice of the global south. Clearly, China disagrees. And for most of the world, does that dehyphenation exist between India and China? What India gets to the table, what China gets to the table, or do they view this as one complete, Southeast Asian region, which needs to be sort of, categorized in one entire bloc?
No, I don't think so. I mean, in fact, India and China, they are very clearly distinguished at the global level, especially by those powers that matter and by the global south itself. Global south looks at India as a benign power, a power that is looking to help them, and which has shown, does not only preach it, but has shown by example. But during the pandemic, you have seen, while China became the cause of that all mayhem that happened across the world, the Western countries were hoarding the vaccines that for the geopolitical ends, which they did not even, were not using it for their own country. India, on the other hand, supplied to the rest of the world despite having a major need within the country itself. One-sixth of the humanity needed to be catered, but we looked at it from a global perspective, from a larger perspective for the health, because one health, one world, when he talks about it, that's what he means, that it's for everyone. And that's the difference between India and China's approaches. And countries, wherever China has succeeded, frankly, it has been also a problem at our end because we have let it be. We have not been there. There's a tremendous goodwill for India on the ground. And there are a umpteen number of examples, and we have done so. And the G20 getting African Union into that, holding 3 Voice of Global South summits, not one. I mean, you all know that any consultant can write a 500-page report on what are the requirements of the developing world is. It could have been done by that in India. There are plenty of people who can write that. But at the same time, Prime Minister decided that we should have them talk about what are the requirements, what are those needs, and how those needs to be factored into the G20 deliberations or at the UN deliberations, where he's talking of these SDGs that have been put on the back burner because of the pandemic, because of the selfish attitude of various powers and the Russia-Ukraine war, which has impacted them adversely and disproportionately.
Okay.
So I think that those are very important things. That's where India stands apart from China, and the world understands. That's the reason you are there in the G7 all along. 11, 12 times you have participated there. For everything that matters in the world, India factors in. Its voice is factored in, and that happens because of that. Russia, if it trusts India, Ukraine also trusts with India. So China is there, but it's not being trusted by the West. So you have that kind of heft, which I don't think China has in the changing paradigm that is taking place today in the global discourse.
Okay, let's also talk about the changing paradigm. Ambassador Veena Sikri, considering the kind of geopolitical divisions and situations that we are seeing out of the wars that have now broken out, multilateralism clearly is a key focus and something that the countries across the world will aim at. How difficult would it be to actually achieve multilateralism, considering the fact that we're now seeing Cold Era war-like blocs once again?
Yes, this is being called Cold War II, the situation that has evolved after 2 years of the of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And, I agree with you, but I think we must remember both the statements that our Prime Minister had made. One is he said earlier, this is not the era of war. And he told both the leaders, President Putin and President Zelensky, about that today. And today he said that the collective strength is what is necessary, not battlefield victories. Collective strength of the people of the world for the benefit of humanity. And we must work together to get away from thinking that the battlefield is what will provide us with supremacy. Battlefield will in fact destroy the whole world because the weapons of mass destruction that exist, there's going to be no one left. I mean, even the people who are themselves warring with each other are not going to be left to say that one side or the other has a victory. So I think this reminder from the Prime Minister is very relevant. Now the question is that is the UN ready to serve as that collective strength to provide peace to the world? This is the question. And it is clear that with the existing institutions of the United Nations, whether it is the Security Council, whether it is the financial institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, others, none of these are capable today of providing that kind of collective solutions that will be beneficial and will, with all the rest of the world, will accept. That is why there are individual efforts now. Our Prime Minister has met President Putin, he has met President Zelensky. We're looking at different ways to find possible solutions. Nobody knows where the solution will emerge, but these efforts have needed to arise because the UN has failed. And I think our Prime Minister is drawing attention to that we must reform the UN. And that is what we're going to
and there
need
are
to see
several questions, of course, Ambassador Sikri. Which have been raised on the relevance of the United Nations. But before I wrap up, a quick word from you, Ambassador Trigunayat, this overall visit of the Prime Minister to America, your big, takeaways from this visit. There was a lot of emphasis on an inclusive Indo-Pacific. Semiconductors were focused upon. For you, what are the big takeaways from this visit?
Well, I think that this was a very important visit, which was bilateral, plurilateral, and multilateral in nature. And the objective of all the three have been achieved. One of the most important things has been bilaterally with the United States, talking to them mainly about the global conflicts that are taking place, where India is trying to play a peacemaker role. And of course, getting all the technologies that we have been talking about, expediting all those. That's very important for us. Secondly, in the Quad, India's imprint is very clear on the Quad declaration, if you were to see. From in all initiatives that are there, whether it's the health security down to the Maitri in that domain. Secondly, I think that one of the key initiatives here is to tell the world at the multilateral level that we've got to be serious about these reforms, and that's important. And let these organizations become totally irrelevant.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you, Ambassador Veena Sikri and Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, for joining us on the show tonight and sharing your perspective. Namaskar. Thank you very much.